I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is my daily life living in Nicaragua. For my regular viewers, you are aware that one of my favorite airlines and the one that I always use when coming here to Nicaragua is Spirit. But many of you will also be aware that they recently declared bankruptcy, which on its own is not really a problem that doesn't affect the majority of flyers. However, it appears that Spirit has discontinued their flights from Fort Lauderdale to Managua, Nicaragua, the only flight path that they have into the country as of February 6th. Now, this is an unofficial cancellation, but no flights are bookable past that time, and people that are on the channel and have tried to book past that point have had either no luck getting flights or they managed to book flights and they were canceled and their money returned. So Spirit is no longer flying into Nicaragua, and that's going to present an opportunity to consider other options. So what should you be looking at when considering flying into Nicaragua in 2025? Well, we're going to talk about that right after the bump. Spirit has long been the optimum airlines for flights into Nicaragua. It really did a lot to open up Nicaragua as a travel destination after COVID's lockdowns were over. We didn't really have lockdowns per se here in Nicaragua, but we did have a lack of flights coming in because there was just a general lack of travel, so there didn't need to be flight paths. And when they came back, Spirit has been instrumental in reopening the tourist market. Now, the most important thing that we've heard, and this is officially still a rumor, but we have seen this published in the newspapers, so it looks pretty promising, and I mean like Forbes, that kind of thing, is that Avianca, which is the flag carrier for Colombia, and they own TACA, the flag carrier for El Salvador, has picked up unofficially the Spirit route coming from Fort Lauderdale. Now, Avianca already owns a Miami, that's MIA airport, flight into Managua. That is not the most popular, but it is pretty heavily used. And now they are picking up the FLL or Fort Lauderdale flight into Managua. Now, this is a little bit strange, and we're not quite sure why we're seeing this, because Fort Lauderdale and Miami are neighboring airports. They're really close to each other, but this suggests that Avianca is confident that a greater amount of traffic coming into Nicaragua is going to be happening in the future. This is definitely a vote of confidence for Nicaragua's tourism industry and maybe suggestive of Avianca wanting to invest ahead of time in the potential for routes to the new Puente Huete aeropuerto that is going to be opening sometime in the future. Now, I must say, I did fly over Puente Huete just in the last few days, and there's no visible construction going on. So the runways are there, as we know. The airport exists, but it doesn't have the terminals, and we were hoping that the terminal construction will be farther along at this point. There's a lot of other construction projects going on in the country, so it's difficult to prioritize things and move equipment around and so forth. So it's understandable why they're not able to get to it, but it is a major construction project that we're looking forward to. Now, we already have a working airport in Managua, so it's not a huge deal, but for those of us who wish to do international flights, specifically South America and Europe, we're really looking forward to that larger runway, that longer runway that can take those bigger international planes that need that larger fuel capacity. So we're looking forward to that, and perhaps Avianca is as well. That would make a lot of sense. Or maybe they feel that Spirit having connections into Fort Lauderdale already, this is an opportunity for Avianca to shift those customers that are domestic for Spirit onto international for Avianca. We do know that Avianca here in the region is looking to expand specifically from their Colombian base in Bogota to make more flights accessible into South America. So there's every possibility that they're looking at Managua maybe as an additional stop along that path in some complicated route. It seems very unlikely, even with the new airport coming in, that they're looking at it in a hub style capacity, especially when El Salvador's hub is so physically close to us and already a really important one for them. Having an additional one here in Nicaragua, because it's not a major tourist center and the new airport is not that big, probably doesn't make any sense. But maybe with that longer runway, maybe it's going to be used for something. We have an extreme amount of traffic noise today. I have noticed all day when I'm out here doing recording, the traffic has been much louder than usual. For those who are only looking at flying into Nicaragua for the first time, many of you ask the question, what airport should I be looking at? The answer is simple. We only have one international airport in the country. We essentially only have one airport of any prominence whatsoever, and that is Managua. All the other airports in the country are extremely small. One of the rare ones that actually does get some passenger use is the one at the Corn Islands. That is an extremely tiny runway, which they are expanding. They're trying to put in slightly larger planes, but right now it only takes the tiniest of Cessnas flying out to that little island destination. Beyond that, everything else in the country is effectively just for private planes, crop dusters, agricultural things, sightseeing, that sort of thing, and even that extremely rare. I just happened to see a plane fly over into Leon Airport for the first time ever today, and that was a crop duster that was just coming in for a landing. Those are very, very rare. So for all intents and purposes, Managua is our only airport that you need to have any concerns about. You will never use another one coming in from another country. So Managua is your destination. Of course, we do have a video talking about how you can use Liberia's airport in Costa Rica, which is a lot more effort, but if you have reasons to be in Costa Rica or you simply can't get the connections that you need to Managua, that is a reasonable option. Tegucigalpa is not far away, but is much more work and not expected to be a tourist path, so you can run into some complications there. And of course, you can do things like flying to San Salvador and drive down, but that is still a lot of driving. You're not talking about a simple transfer. So Managua is the only one in country. Liberia is the only one out of country that would still be considered an easy tourist connection for many places. And for some, like San Juan del Sur, Liberia may be equidistant or equi effort as coming into Managua, but anything north of San Juan del Sur, even Rivas, is going to be far simpler if you're able to get the connections to come into Managua. So who flies into Managua and from where? We did this recently talking about what your options are, so we're not going to dig into too much. I'll try to link right now up above so you can go look at our flight paths in 2024, but this is really just important because Spirit is changing. When we made that video just a few months ago, Spirit had come back and was flying again. It had declared bankruptcy, but had not pulled out of Nicaragua. So it was the key carrier that we were discussing. Now those flight paths are replaced by Avianca. We still have United and American flying in from the United States with direct connections from places like Houston and, again, Miami. A lot of things are going to come from Miami and or Fort Lauderdale, which is really North Miami. We do have Aeromexico coming in from Mexico City, not from Cancun. It's easy connections to Cancun, but we don't have flights to and from Cancun. Trust me, I wish we did, not because I want to go to Cancun, but because it has easy connections to a lot of things in the Caribbean and to other potential tourist destinations in a lot of cases, simply because it's Cancun. So it's a very important secondary airport for Mexico. But all of our connections from here, Aeromexico, only to CDMX itself, which of course you can get to everything from there if you need to. Then we have Avianca's TACA arm flying from San Salvador, and a lot of flights on Avianca coming from the United States will go through the TACA site in El Salvador. So be aware if you're flying Avianca that it's not a single path like most of the airlines, which when you're looking at Spirit, it's only Fort Lauderdale. When you're looking at United, it's only Houston. But when you're looking at Avianca, some come from Miami, some are about to come from Fort Lauderdale, and many come through El Salvador first. So it's a completely different set of paths, which gives you a lot more options for Avianca in the United States and that region coming down here. So just be aware that Avianca is a more complex decision, but that makes it more robust overall. You just have a lot more flexibility. Then we have nothing in the Guatemala range, Belize, Honduras. None of them have flights that come into Nicaragua. Costa Rica does have SANSA. That is a direct flight just from Costa Rica right in here, but generally that's not very useful unless you're doing a commuter in between the two countries. Most people who are looking at coming down, that's just not going to be on their radar. It doesn't make too much sense. It's a very small plane, a very specialty route. Then in Panama, we have our southern carrier of Copa, which now has become a low-cost carrier and does provide a lot of good routes to a lot of places, including the United States. So some locations I've heard, like Los Angeles, can get to Nicaragua via Panama City quite effectively. Of course, you're doing a little bit of extra flying. You've got that layover in Panama, but Copa offers that unlimited or really big layover in Panama program. So you can fly into Panama, get a vacation or a mini vacation in Panama during an official layover, which could take a week or so, and then get back on your plane and fly on to Nicaragua, all part of a single flight path. That's a really interesting and relatively unique option. So something that people should be aware of and look into if you're interested in Panama at all, which a lot of people are. It's a very popular destination, both simply as an additional bit of your vacation, but also if you're part of my audience looking at becoming expats. While very different than Nicaragua, Panama is a really awesome potential destination to consider. So things to just put under your cap as possible flight options. And finally, our other option is currently Conviasa coming from Havana, Cuba. Now, they are the flag carrier for Venezuela, but the connections on Conviasa for us do not connect to Venezuela at this time, which is Very sad. We do wish we had that. That would be really amazing if we had direct connections. We would love to see Avianca going directly to Bogota instead of through El Salvador first. We would love to see Conviasa coming from Caracas rather than going through Havana. These would be great connections into South America for us, but Nicaragua has nothing that connects directly to South America. Everything has to go through another airport first at this time. Again, Puente Huete, if that goes the way that we expect, we plan to see, expect to see that places, especially Avianca, is very likely to bring in direct flights from Bogota at that time, because they'll be just enough farther, just enough bigger runway that it'll probably make sense. They are making such a push to try to encourage traffic into and through Bogota that it would be a very obvious choice for them, and for us, obviously, a grand slam of awesome travel opportunity, because we're always looking at ways to get to South America, and that extra hop through El Salvador, first flying 45 minutes extra north, having a layover, and then flying back over Nicaragua to go south, adds a lot of fuel cost and time and effort and complications to flights that shouldn't be logically that bad because we're so close to South America. So this is something that Nicaragua has always been challenged by, getting to South America or Europe. We have too many extra hops. Those are things we want to see solved. But for 2025, under the current status that we have, we are not going to see the Puente Huete airport open this year. That is my expectation. I have no reason to believe that's going to be open during this calendar year, so don't be planning on that. People ask me all the time, can I fly in now? Can I fly in now? No, it's a long way out. It's a major project. Yes, the runways are done, but that does not mean that they're weeks away from building a new terminal and entire monitoring system. Like that's a big thing. So that's not going to happen quickly. So for now, Managua is your airport, Managua City Airport, and that's MGA. All of our main flight paths are the same except for Spirit, and that one, it looks like, unofficially has been picked up or about to be picked up by Avianca, and they will be servicing that hopefully in the near future. We have absolutely no word of when they plan to start servicing that route. So from now, if you're seeing this in real time, chances are you already can't book Spirit any longer. All their flights are probably full. Feel free to give it a try, but expect it to not be available, and you'll have no flexibility because their final flights are already booked out at February 6th. That Fort Lauderdale is no longer accessible to Managua until such time as Avianca begins flying that path. And of course, they can acquire that path and not service it right away. So we may be looking at a long time before they start servicing it. Maybe they're paying to hold it so that they're ready for future capacity expansion when the time comes. We don't know. So for the moment, if you're looking at low cost into Nicaragua from North America, your best bet is going to be Avianca most of the time. American and United will be your second and third tier options coming from the United States, although sometimes they're quite good, so don't rule them out for sure. Definitely take a look. I find that American often, at least 50% of the time, is pretty competitive with Avianca, so you may run into luck there. You also just remember whatever flight points system you are on, whether it's Star Alliance or whatever, right? Just figure out which one of those carriers are part of your point system, and that's probably going to be what works out best for you. And as always, I recommend going directly to airline websites. You get way more information, more details, more savings in almost all cases by doing that. If you go through third-party things, whether it's a travel agent or just one of those websites that collects data, you're almost certainly going to get screwed if you use them to actually book. If you want to do some basic research and say what flights are available from where to where, yeah, that is going to work out fine. But if you're actually trying to book flights, chances are that's not going to work well. Also remember, always book out a few weeks in advance, if not a few months. And if you book on Tuesdays and look around at alternative dates by as much as you can, often you can save a ton of money and help balance the flight paths so that you have more planes that are nearly full rather than some that are completely full and some that are nearly empty. No one benefits from either of those. We benefit, everyone, both the airlines and the passengers benefit by having the load spread out. That's why the cost is done the way that it is, so definitely consider that. The traffic today is insane. I feel like I haven't had a minute all day without loud engines going by. It is a Saturday that I'm recording this, but this is pretty extreme. Anyway, those are the flights. So Avianca is probably going to be your main carrier. And remember that Copa does offer flights from the United States. That can be quite competitive. So certainly give them a look too. I was really surprised at how much they've changed and what offerings they have now. So that is a big deal. Generally, Aeromexico is going to be available from the US, but very costly. That is not a flight path that they're encouraging. They're kind of a luxury airline, and they're really meant for Mexican travelers. They're open to anyone, of course, but they're not designed around taking American passengers to Nicaragua. So that is kind of a premium service in a way. Other carriers like Sansa or Conviasa, they're really specialty carriers that aren't going to apply to people except people coming from those specific countries, Cuba and Costa Rica, who want to fly in from there directly, which you're probably not watching this video if that's what you want to do. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I hope that this makes things easier for you flying in this year. Of course, as always, get down there in those comments. Let me know who you've flown, how it was, how much did it cost, which ones worked out for you, which ones were bad for you. Ask your questions. There's information in the show notes how you can send in a video of yourself asking questions so we can put you on the show and connect you with the audience. That's a lot of fun and very valuable. Give us a like for sure. If you like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Miller. All the information's in the show notes, of course, and you can also join our community for just $5 a month, which doesn't get you anything really. It just helps support the channel in a meaningful way. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see all of you tomorrow.